Last week, I asked you to look at some sentences and try and label the parts, putting the parts of speech on the bottom and the functions of different words in the sentence on top. We're going to do a little bit more with that this week. And my goal here is to establish sort of a base of vocabulary and of understanding of what's going on in a sentence. Now, of course, being able to label things in and of itself does not make you a better reader or a better writer. But again, it does provide a sort of common vocabulary and a base on which to build other grammatical stuff that does improve your writing. So, functional analysis, round 2, verbals. Okay, here's a sentence kind of like the ones I gave you last week. On Monday, we really wanted a cat. And like I said then, or as I said then, I'm going to say the same thing now. You want to start by finding the verb. The verb is the core of any sentence. In fact, there are some languages where you don't even need to have anything else but a verb in order to have a sentence. Okay, now if you don't know what the verb is here, what you can do is try changing the tense of the sentence. So on Monday, we really wanted a cat. Put that in the present tense. On Monday, we really want a cat. Or put it in the future tense. On Monday, we really will want a cat. Now you can see that the word that changes there is wanted, from wanted to wants to will want. That's your verb. Now there are 3 kinds of verbs: action, linking, and helping. Wanting is something you do, right? That's an action verb. And once you find the verb, you can say who or what is doing this verb, and that'll be the subject. So who or what wanted a cat? We did. We's the subject. Okay, and we is standing in for some names, so that is a pronoun. What do pronouns do? They replace nouns. Now, if you've got an action verb, you can check to see if you have a direct object, and the direct object will answer the question subject verb what. We really wanted what? Well, we've got an answer to that question here, right? We really wanted a cat. So cat's going to be our direct object. And of course, it's a noun. Now, if you look at your sentence, you've got subjects, you've got objects. Subjects do things, objects have things done to them. Subjects do things, objects have things done to them. And of course, when we say object, we mean a grammatical object. We're not talking about like a thing. Okay, we're talking about the job a particular noun or pronoun is doing in a sentence. Okay, the rest here, it's just modifiers. So on Monday, see how those words kind of go together? That's a little prepositional phrase, right? We've got on the box, in the box, around the box. So this is a preposition. Okay, Monday is going to be a noun. Remember, a preposition takes a noun or a pronoun, pulls it into the sentence, and shows a relationship between that word and something else in the sentence. So in this case, what is on Monday telling us about? Well, it's telling about when we wanted that cat, right? So this whole prepositional phrase is modifying the verb. We could call it an adverbial prepositional phrase, but that's going to be too hard to write, so we'll just leave it blank. Now, Monday is a noun. We're going to call that the object of the preposition. And remember, there are subjects and there are objects. Subjects do verbs. Objects have things done to them. And then, of course, really, what does that tell us? It tells how much we wanted it. It's modifying a verb. So anything that modifies a verb is going to be an adverb. And then A, of course, is modifying cat. And it's an article. Next sentence. We really wanted to run. What's the verb here? Well, at first glance, it looks like there may be 2 verbs, right? Wanted was the verb in the last sentence, and it looks like he's doing the same thing here. But we've also got to run, which looks very, very verb-like. But if we try playing with the tense of the sentence, you can see which word changes and which doesn't. Okay, we really want to run. We really will want to run. We really had wanted to run. Okay, the word want shifts when we change the tense, but nothing happens to the to run. So that's a good clue that wanted is still our main verb here. Well, it's really our only verb. Okay, still an action verb, still something we do. Okay, and we can say who or what wanted to run to get the subject. That's we wanted to run. And this is replacing a noun. So that's a pronoun. And then really tells us how much we want it. Modifying a verb. What modifies verbs? Adverbs. Okay, so what do we do with this thing over here that looks sort of verb-like, but isn't actually doing the job of a verb here? Okay, we know with with an action verb that we have the possibility of having a direct object. We really want what? We really want the cake. We really want a cat. We really want to run. So this to run here is sitting right where we had a direct object in the last sentence. And indeed, this is the direct object of this sentence. Now in the last sentence, the direct object was a noun. And here, to run is doing the job of a noun, right? We really want cookies. We really want candy. We really want to run. It's a thing there. Now, this little thing here that looks kind of verb-like but is doing the job of a noun is what we call a verbal. And in fact, this is an infinitive, which is one of the verbals. Verbs are tricky little beasts. They're super duper important. You can't have a sentence without them. But they like to dress up sometimes as other things. And when they dress up as other things, like adjectives or nouns or adverbs, we call them verbals. So a verbal is a verb that's not doing the job of a verb, it's doing the job of something else. Now, the first of those verbals, which we just saw in that example, is the infinitive. Now, the infinitive is the base form of the verb. It's to plus verb. If it were Spanish, it'd be like the IR version of the verb, or French, maybe be the ER, the IR version of the verb. Okay, now infinitives can act as nouns, they can act as adjectives, they can act as adverbs. For example, I want to play. You could put a noun in there. I want cookies. I want dogs. Or you could say, this is a sandwich to eat. What kind of a sandwich? Well, it's a to-eat sandwich, right? Or it could be doing the job of an adverb. They play to win. Why do they play? How do they play? It's to win. Now, whenever you see that to plus verb, rest assured, it's not going to be doing the job of a verb. It's going to be doing the job of a verbal, which means it'll be a noun, an adjective, or an adverb. Let's look at another example. We really wanted to run the race. Start with a verb. We really want to run the race. We really will want to run the race. Want is the word that changes. That's our verb. Something we do. It's an action. We say who or what wants to run. We do. That's our subject. Still a pronoun. Really is still telling us how much we want it. Hasn't changed. Still an adverb, right? Modifying a verb there. Okay. Now, since we have an action verb, we can see if there's a direct object. We say subject verb what. We really wanted what? Well, we wanted to run, right? So to run here is the direct object. And remember, it's to plus verb. So it's an infinitive and it's doing the job of a noun. I'm just going to label INF for infinitive. Okay. Now what do we do with the race? We could say to run what? To run the race. It's almost like this is another direct object. It's the direct object of this infinitive over here. We're just going to go ahead and call it the object of the infinitive, and we'll just keep it simple. We'll label with an O for object. Again, we've got subjects that do things. We've got objects that have things done to them. So race is a thing. It's an object. Okay, and the is telling which race. So if you want to label adjective, that's fine, or you could label article. Again, we're considering articles a subcategory of adjectives. Only 3 articles, a and the. Now, how about this sentence? We really liked running. All right, I see 2 things in there that look potentially verb-like, right? I see liked and I see running. Now, if I want to see what the verb is again, I can play with the tense of the sentence. We really liked running. We really like running. We really will like running. We really had liked running. And the word that changes there is liked. Running doesn't change at all. So this is our verb. Now, liking is something you do, right? It's not something you are. So that's an action verb. We say who or what really liked running? Well, we did. So that's our subject. And really tells us how much we liked it. Still an adverb. Okay, now we ask that question, subject verb what? We really liked what? Well, running is our direct object. Now wait a second. Isn't running a verb? Isn't that something you do? And yet here, it's functioning like a thing. We could put another thing right in here. We really liked apples. We really liked the race. So running is a verb that's doing the job as a noun. It's another verbal. Now this is a special kind of verbal called a gerund. And that's an ing verb that's doing the job of a noun. Now you could label this as a noun. I'm going to go ahead and label it as a gerund. Either way, same. And every year I suggest to my students that they name their firstborn child Gerund, which would be a great combination of the name Gerald and Edmund, and have great grammar associations. But as far as I know, no one has ever taken me up on that. All right, so second verbal, the gerund. It ends in ing. It's acting as a noun, and you can remember the ends. Gerund, ing, noun. An example might be running is fun. Next sentence. Running is fun. Except it really isn't, let's be honest. Okay, first thing we need to do is find the verb. Now again, we've got running, which looks like it could be a verb, but we just saw another sentence where it looked like a verb, but it wasn't one. So play with the tense. You could say running is fun, running was fun, running will be fun. And you notice that the word that changes there is is. Is our verb. Is always verb. It's always verb. It's never anything else. Is always verb. So what kind of verb is it? Is something you do or is it something you are? It shows something that you are, right? So that is a linking verb. Linking verbs show being. They show what you are. So we say who or what is fun? Well, running is fun. That's our subject. Okay, and what label are we going to put on this thing? Well, it's doing the job of a noun, and we could put a noun right in that slot, right? We could say a test is fun, or grammar is fun, or listening to your teacher talk like this is fun. So this is doing the job of a noun. It's got the ing. Okay, verbs doing the job of a noun ending in ing are called gerunds. So labeled as a gerund, labeled as a noun, doesn't matter to me. Comes out the same either way. All right, and then we've got fun. Now, fun tells us about running, right? Okay, so it's an adjective describing that, and we could call it the subject complement. We could call it the predicate adjective. Okay, we can just draw a little arrow over here, your choice. But that's an adjective describing running. Actually, I would rather put predicate adjective on it because it feels a little more fancy. How about this sentence? They have already bought new running shoes. First thing you got to do, find the verb. They've already bought new running shoes. They will have already bought new running shoes. They already bought new running shoes. They already buy new running shoes. That sounds a little weird, but they will already buy new running shoes. Again, they already makes it a little funky there. If we were to take it out, the verb tense change would show up a little easier. Okay, but if we keep playing with it, it's the have and the bought that are going to do the shifting. Okay, now buy is clearly something you do. That's pretty clearly a verb, right? And that's an action verb. Now you say, what is the have doing there? Well, that's one of those helping verbs, right? Hangs out with the main verb, helps it show tense in this case. So I'm going to put a big HV on top of that for helping verb, label the verb under here. Okay, then we say, who or what bought new running shoes? Well, that tells us our subject. Part of speech for they. Replacing nouns, right? So it's going to be a pronoun. Pronouns replace nouns. Okay, already tells us when the buying happened, right? If it modifies a verb, it's going to be an adverb. Okay, and then what did they buy? They have already bought what? They've already bought shoes. So shoes here is our direct object. And in case it actually is an object, right? Person, place, thing. Now we've got new. New tells us what? Tells us about the shoes. And what kind of word modifies a noun? Definitely adjectives. All right, now running tells us about the shoes too, right? These are running shoes. So this is also an adjective. But running looks awful lot like a verb here, okay? This is a verb that's doing the job of an adjective. And if you want to label it as adjective, that'll work just fine. I'm going to go ahead and label it as a participle because that's what's on my next slide, and I'm giving you a little preview. Okay, our third kind of verbal is the participle. We've got present participles that end in ing, and we just saw that example. I bought running shoes. And then we've got past participles that end in ed, or it may be like an irregular past participle ending. And if you want to know what the past participle is for a verb, say, I have blank. I have run, I have bought, I have kicked, I have seen. And then that little past participle form works as an adjective. So you could say, the kicked cat was out for revenge, or Dad mended the torn dress. But participles act as adjectives. If it's a participle, it's an adjective. Next sentence. Panting, she pursued the thief. Now, the first thing you got to do, as always, is find the verb. If you're looking at panting, that does look sort of verb-like, doesn't it? But let's try changing the tense of the sentence. Panting, she pursues the thief. Panting, she will pursue the thief. Panting, she had pursued the thief. The word that changes there is pursued. That's a verb. And pursuing is something you do, right? It's chasing after someone. And you say, who or what is pursuing the thief? Well, she is. And she is standing in for a name, so that's a pronoun. Now I can ask myself, subject verb what? She pursued what? She pursued the thief. That's a direct object. Okay, and of course, the tells us which thief? The thief. And that's an article, or you can call it an adjective. Either way is fine with me. But let's call it an article because that's more precise. Okay, so what does panting tell us? Panting is describing the person running, right? You know, I mean, it almost feels like panting is describing how she's pursuing the thief. But you know what? By definition, participles are adjectives, so we're going to make it modify the subject here. And of course, normally adjectives don't modify pronouns. You wouldn't say an ugly she, but we're just, in our mind, we're modifying the noun that would otherwise be here. Okay, so this is doing the job of an adverb, or sorry, an adjective. What am I saying? Okay, and that's going to be a participle. A present participle. Right? Disappointed, she began to cry. Now, disappointing someone could be something you do, right? Like if you disappoint your mother or your father. But let's play with the tenses to find the verb. She began to cry. She will begin to cry. She had begun to cry. The word that changes there is began, right? That's your verb. And beginning is something you do. You say who or what began to cry? Well, she did. So that's going to be the subject. Standing in for a noun, that's a pronoun. Okay, she began to what? She began to cry. So to cry is a direct object, just like we had before, which means it's doing the job of a noun. Okay, but it's to plus verb, it's an infinitive, that base form of the verb. Okay, so what does disappointed tell us? Well, it tells us about her, right? So there we have a verb that's doing the job of an adjective. And you could label this a participle, you could label this an adjective. Either way would work fine for me. All right, last sentence. This one, go ahead and do on your own. First question, what's the verb? If you're not sure, try playing with the tense of the sentence. Then find the subject. Say who or what is doing the verb. If you've got an action verb, you can say subject verb what. And if there's an answer to that question, then you have a direct object. Now, the direct object could be a verbal, since we're talking about verbals. And that direct object may seem to have a direct object. To you what? So there could be another object there, the object of an infinitive. Oh, look at me, I'm giving the answers. I can't help myself. Okay, then everything beyond that is just modifiers. So figure out what the target is for each of those modifiers, and then you should be good to go.